the other way, and then that works better.
Hey,
Whoa,
hold on.
This could be a good meeting. It's the Halloween version.
I was gonna say, it's not even Halloween.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone, to the Centerville City Council meeting. We've just spent an hour and a half in a work session and an ACB board meeting, and we welcome this to the just general session of City Council being held on November 19th at Centerville City Hall. Let's do a roll call. I'll thank you, staff, as well that's here, and any members of the public. Let's do a roll call to see if we can conduct business, starting with Councilwoman Meekum.
Meekum present.
Summer Hayes present.
Amen present.
Oh, sorry, Hurst present.
Plummer present.
All 5 council members present.
Wait
Thank
for
you.
the mayor.
Thank you. You're giving me my second vote.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, all 5 council members, for being here. Let's start with the legislative prayer thought from council member Shaylin Heyman.
All right. So when you see your name on this thought or prayer, there's a lot of pressure, or at least for me, it feels like there's a lot of pressure. I feel like I have to come up with something like really pithy, or some really nice quotable, or some really excellent story that will make people think that I'm funny. I'm sure some of you wonder what might come out of my mouth, because sometimes we don't know. Here's the thing. So I found myself thinking, okay, pressure. It's Thanksgiving time. I need to come up with something great, something really esoteric, academic, amazing to say about Thanksgiving. It occurred to me as I was going through all of this in my head, what should I say? I've almost been on the city council now for a year. And I found myself thinking back over this last year, what am I most thankful for? And I realized that the thing that I kept coming back to over and over again was staff. You guys, I am so thankful that we have such amazing people that work for the city. I mean, I got a small glimpse of how great our staff was when I worked on the planning commission. I wish more people had the opportunity to sit here and to experience what I experience. Because as a resident, man, I mean, you know, garbage gets picked up and streets get plowed and you don't think about it. And then you come and you sit in my position. And we come up with all this legislative policy, right? We're gonna come up with the big ideas. But you guys are the ones who go out and implement it. You're the ones that make us look good. I mean, you are some of the most professional, hardworking people that just genuinely care about our community. So I have like nothing super pithy or academic to say. I just found myself really wanting to speak from the heart and just say thank you to all of our Centerville staff. You guys are really, really just rock stars. So I found myself being sitting here, again, kind of coming up on my first year in city council, just really thankful for each and every one of you.
Amen. Thank you for that thought. If you'd all rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Now we're at the open session. This is a chance to come to the microphone. If anyone comes up, there's a portable microphone there because the permanent one's not working. Pick that up. State where you're from and take 2 to 3 minutes to share your comments in this open session. If we can't respond too heavily to anything because it's not put on the agenda, but we like to give this up an opportunity to breathe things forward to us. So anybody here in the audience or online, that is now open. Seeing nobody for the open session, we'll move on. The first presentation tonight is the fiscal year 2024 audit report. There is an audit committee, and as an audit committee, we met by Zoom last week. and went over this with our auditors prior to having it presented to you. I'm going to have Nate come up and introduce this as our finance director, and we have our auditors here as well too, but Nate's kind of over that audit, and so Nate, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. As Mayor mentioned, we just recently finished our... Is it on? Sorry, I didn't turn it on when I put it up. There we go. Sorry, as Mayor mentioned, we just finished our annual audit for the fiscal year 2024. And we have John Hatterley with Larson & Company here to present his findings to us. Before he does, I just wanted to give my appreciation to him and his staff. They're great to work with. And yeah, it was a very smooth process. We also have Marcus Arbuckle here with Keddington Christensen, who does an awful lot to help us with preparing for this audit and putting together our financial report. So with that, I'll turn the time over to John.
Thanks, council, for letting me come and take a few minutes. Like the mayor said, we met with the audit committee last week, went through a lot of things, talked a lot about a lot of the things that we came across in the audit, any recommendations that we had. Got a lot of feedback from Nate and from, it's good to meet with the audit committee. And Marcus was involved in that as well. I won't be as in-depth as we were last week because I don't think you want to hear from me for an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the opinions that we're required to give as part of your audit. And then we'll go over the schedule of findings and then just a few things that we're required to communicate to you as a council. So the first opinion that we're required to give, and really is the main focus of our audit, is on the financial statements. That's why we're hired to look at the financial statements. And that opinion is an unmodified or an unqualified opinion. That is a clean opinion. That means that we don't have to modify our audit report for any conditions or things that we find in the audit that we can't get past and we can't test. The only thing really that's new in the audit report this year is just remember it's your responsibility as Centerville City to identify any conditions or events that would come up or do come up that would prohibit you from continuing as a going concern. So negative impact on the city, and those just need to be expressed to us, and we'll talk through it, make sure that you've done your financial analysis to say, you know, identify the issue, how are we going to get past the issue, can we get past the issue, or are we going to have to go out and find funding or whatever it may be. This came about because of COVID. I think we've talked about the COVID issue before. Nobody wanted to talk about how COVID was affecting either governments or private businesses in their financial statements, and then people rely on that information, and if they end up folding up shop, then you know they're looking for people to blame, or you know the creditors are coming after them, things like that. So everybody's standards changed that say, look, if there's conditions or events like that, then you have to be talking about it in your financial statements. And we would expect some sort of a note disclosure saying, hey, look, we recognize this is what the city's going to do. We don't see it's a problem, or this is how it's going to negatively impact us. All right. The next opinion that we're required to issue is on your compliance with Utah State Code. So I'm going to flip all the way to the back. Sorry. Should have been a little bit more prepared. All right, so every year the state auditor issues their compliance guide and has the external auditors as part of the audit process look at your compliance with certain specific aspects of Utah code. So this opinion is on compliance, and it's very specific to the areas that we're required to test. It's also not a legal opinion. It's a little bit frustrating that people refer to the compliance guide as the legal compliance guide. It has nothing to do. We're not attorneys, and we don't give legal opinions. But like I said, it's very specific. It's not on the entirety of Utah State Code. The areas that we're required to look at this year for the city were your compliance with budgets, so your budget integrity, making sure that things were within budget. The justice courts, we look at the controls that the justice courts have, making sure that the money they collect actually make it through the city and then into the bank. We look at your fraud risk assessment. What we're looking there for is really that you talk about it as a council, that you sign it, and that you send it to the state. I was just talking to Marcus before the meeting. I'm not a super fan of the fraud risk assessment, and we talked kind of at length, I think, in the audit committee meeting about it. That form is filled out by every government entity in the state of Utah, whether you're a small town, whether you're a service district, whether you're Salt Lake County, Centerville City, and every government entity is different. Your risks here are different than Salt Lake City. You're different than a small service district, but you're filling out the same form. And so it's frustrating to me because if you have to answer no to any of those questions, then you don't have the ability to say, hey, we have mitigating controls in place that are protecting us. So you may not score really high, or you may score really high, but reality says that may or may not be true. And so I don't love that form, so they require it, so make sure that you're filling out, you're talking about the controls. I do like that aspect of it, is it gets you talking about internal controls. Internal controls are so important to every aspect, from the governing body, the way you communicate, the information that you give, the information that you're given, all the way down to Nate's staff. They have to have controls over their processes. That's how you protect yourself and your staff from anything happening. The next section we're required to test is your fund balance. So we're making sure that you don't have any deficit fund balances in any of your funds, as well as that you're maintaining the appropriate fund balance limitation. So under the 35% or above 5% of your general fund revenues for the year. We look at your restricted taxes and the restricted revenues, making sure that you're tracking them separately from everything else, and that you're spending those appropriately. And then we look at your government fees. So our opinion on those areas, on your compliance, is also an unmodified or an unqualified opinion. So nothing significant. There was one small finding that we'll talk about, and that is on your budgets in the, I'm trying to remember what fund it was. Transportation fund. So typically what's happened is the city has budgeted one large amount for projects. And then this year there was an additional project that I don't know if it wasn't foreseen, but it didn't get budgeted for. So therefore the transportation fund exceeded its budget appropriation. What Nate and Brant, when we've talked to them, what they're going to start doing is budgeting for actual projects, so that this doesn't happen in the future, where you know the projects that are going on, that there's appropriate budget set for it. I don't foresee that this being an issue that's going to carry on. I think that they recognize the error, and they'll correct that. So our recommendation is just you as a council, when you're preparing the upcoming budget, you're reviewing the prior year's budget to actual, making sure that all the funds are within budget. So I'll put that responsibility on you as a council, as well as Nate's staff and Brant. So any questions?
How are we doing with Fund 47?
You're gonna have to give me a name, not a number. I don't look at the numbers. I look at the names.
It's our capital projects, our capital improvement fund.
The reason I bring that up, because in budget discussions, and I didn't bring it up in the audit committee last week, we always talk about Fund 47, the things having to come from there. Do you look at any particular funds stronger than others? I imagine you do.
Well, yeah, I mean, because most of your activity is going to be in the general fund and then your proprietary funds. But we look at every fund. We look at the revenue and the expenses out of every fund. Make sure, I mean, really, when we're giving an opinion, we're giving an opinion on each individual fund. So every column in your financial statements actually gets an opinion. So if one fund, if we can't test, like say your capital projects, if we can't figure out where that revenue came from and we can't test that, and there's no information, no documentation, nor how you spent that money, then potentially that one fund could be qualified. Then in the audit report, it would list every fund, every column on the financial statements, and then state the opinion. So it just so happens that all the funds had an unmodified or an unqualified opinion. Therefore, it just rolls up into one opinion.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a follow-up on the transportation fund. If you recall from our budget discussions, we were going to start addressing transportation differently because it would be this pot of money, but we weren't accounting for the engineering costs or any other costs. So Nate and I, we actually created a lot of confusion for Public Works because the issue with transportation, it staggers 2 budget years, right? Projects start in May. And so some projects you bid out and there might be more funds coming out of the current budget year and less next year where we budgeted it differently. So we are trying to get a better handle of how we deal with that staggering of 2 budget years. And that's where some of this confusion came into play. And again, with Public Works, constantly trying to adjust those projects to, reduce the drainage projects because we didn't have the funds in there to support those projects or the water projects. So we changed up what streets we're going to pursue, and that really caused some confusion with that fund. So we've identified where we could be a little bit better in the future on that fund. So it's still going to be a tough one, though, just to be honest. But before the end of the fiscal year, there is potentially an opportunity to come to you and ask for and make a budget amendment, and to ensure we don't have a finding. Even if we do go over budget, we need to have that conversation with you before that happens. So, is that fair, John?
Yep.
Out of curiosity, I now don't remember if it was in this report, how far over was one project or?
Yeah, it was about 400,000.
400,000.
I think it was 435, if I remember right.
I totally get what you're saying, Brent, like such a hard time.
Which is the engineering costs of the projects. Again, a reminder, the way it used to be done is there was 1.7 million in transportation fund. So we tell Public Works, you have 1.7 million to spend, and that's what they would spend on the projects, not taking into account the engineering and the design that goes into that. So then the project turns into be 2.1 or 2.2. That's how it used to be done. And we've got to get away from that and actually have project-specific numbers accounting for the engineering costs and all the design costs that go with that project. So it's going to be better for sure.
Yeah, and that fund's a lot like the capital projects. I mean, anything that goes into those funds, black and white says you open a capital projects fund when you have a project to fund. And when that project's finished, you close down that fund. And 3 state auditors ago, it was kind of when I first started, everybody was kind of frustrated because they were opening and closing the capital projects fund all the time. And the state auditor was like, well, this is ridiculous. Let's just open a capital projects fund. And really now, it's a way to maintain your general fund balance because you want to save for future projects to be fiscally responsible. You don't want to go out and issue debt every time you want to do a project. But it makes it really hard in a general fund to not go over that fund balance limitation if you have a significant project that's upcoming. So everybody transfers it now into the capital projects, and that just kind of stays open all the time. But really, everything in the capital projects fund is assigned. There's no unassigned fund balance. So it should be tagged to specific capital projects. So that would be my only recommendation on the capital projects is have a plan for what you're going to do with that. It shouldn't be just a slush fund that just you're accumulating funds. It should be for future projects that are assigned. Does that answer your question, Mayor?
It does. I also want to point out to the council, and I know that we didn't want to take everything to go through everything the audit committee went through. That's the way an audit can be, but there was, we did not meet the single audit threshold this year where they did not have to do a single audit. That is if you receive over $750,000 of federal funds. And we did not meet that, but we had met it couple of years in the last 4, hadn't we?
Probably at least 2 or 3 years because probably started with COVID and then ARPA money.
Which may mean it'll impact this next year as we draw on the green steel tank, correct?
We won't. We still won't hit 750,000.
Well, and now starting in
I just didn't know if our
October,
draw amount would equal that.
No, we still want.
Yeah, starting in October, that threshold went to $1 million. So you actually have to spend $1 million before you
Got it.
trigger that single audit.
Can I ask for one thing on it? I think it's our management letter to you guys. This isn't, I don't know that it's your fault, you wouldn't know, but we have the wrong council members on there. I think we should get that, change out that letterhead, so we, on our letterhead.
Oh, on your letterhead?
We have the right council members and mayor on there, so, because it isn't going to go into a file permanently with the state auditor's office, right?
No, that stays with us.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not as a big deal, but,
Yeah, I don't even, as long as Centerville City's on there, I didn't even look at the council member, so I probably wouldn't even have
Okay.
known.
yeah, that's our management rep letter, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah,
Yep.
if it's not going anything permanent, but,
I still might have that changed, just,
We were working on a new letterhead. Yes, we'll get it changed.
yeah, we can submit them, we just change that out. Yeah, I agree with you, we still
Yeah.
change it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I just want to reiterate what Councilmember Hayman's comments were earlier. More specific to the finance staff, they do a very good job, and having Marcus involved, nothing but good report from my staff, so that makes me happy. And it really was, it was a really smooth process, and that helps keep your audit fees down when it's a smooth process. I mean, because we understand it's costly to have an audit done, and it's one of those requirements by the state. I mean, audits are a good thing. I mean, I'm an auditor. I'm not going to tell you they're a bad thing. It's a good thing to have an audit done, but we understand the cost that goes into them. And when you have staff that are giving us the information immediately, it makes the process go a lot smoother. And so we just appreciate Nate and his staff and Brant and Marcus being involved. So thanks, everybody.
Hey, will you do me a favor?
Yep.
One time I want to go out and present to one of your city councils, because for 3.5 years in my first job, I was always the greenie, and they never let
Okay.
me present, so,
Yeah.
okay?
I've got plenty of council meetings. I've got Cody and Colleen doing different, they were so mad at me, and I was like, sorry, I'm going to Centerville. You guys got to go do a couple other ones. And
Well, thanks for
So-
coming to us, so. All right, we don't
Okay.
have to have a vote on this one, do we? It's just presentation. So, thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Nate.
Nate's saying you do.
Accept the audit as.
Yeah, okay.
So what we did with the audit committee is we did recommend
We
that we
did.
accept the audit.
Yeah, we accepted it there. We'll accept it as city council then, too. So I need a proposal.
I'll make a proposal that we accept the audit as recommended.
Second.
We have a second. We have a tie on the second. I'll give it to the one closest to me. So let's take a vote. Councilwoman Meekum.
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, let's go to, item number 1, it's a public hearing. Zoning map amendment on the Layton property, 2090 North, 400 West. Okay, who do we have? Oh, awesome.
Where's Matt?
Thank you, Sydney.
Absolutely. Thanks, City Council, for letting me come and present. So I'm going to be presenting the zoning map amendment, also known as a rezone, for the Layton property. The applicant is Matthew Layton, located at 2090 North, 400 West, here in Centerville. The parcel number is 072250417. The parcel size is 0.7 acres total, and 0.07 acres is what is being requested for the rezone. The current zone is public facilities medium, and they are proposing to be rezoned as residential low to match the rest of their parcel. The parcel is west adjacent to the Reading Elementary School. The property is currently zoned residential low and public facilities medium. The applicant is requesting to rezone it all to residential low, so to make it all one zone within the property. The basic history of this is the Reading Elementary School allocated land to 7 property owners west of the school's property. Each property owner received a piece of this parcel with the responsibility to incorporate this land into their property lines through the boundary line adjustment application. It was advised that these adjustments be accommodated by the rezoning applications to ensure consistency of the land use and zoning classifications. Since the transfer, one applicant has done so along with this now proposed rezone. 4 other property owners have successfully merged the additional land into their prospective property boundaries with Davis County. The applicant now seeks to rezone a portion of their property currently classified as the public facilities medium to residential low, ensuring consistency across the entire parcel and aligning with the zoning with the existing residential designation. So I'm going to assume that you guys have read through it and I don't have to read it verbatim, but I would love to answer any questions. It seems like it's a pretty self-explanatory rezone. It goes aligned with what we like to see within the city to begin with. There is a little bit of a history that I was informed on by other city staff, but the Planning Commission also approved to have this obviously presented to you guys because it was a pretty straightforward rezone and pretty aligned with what we want.
Yeah, I think maybe some of the history, and other council members can correct me, the discussion was, do we just go ahead and rezone the entire small parcels along the way? And then it was the discussion, well, should that be city initiated or private property owner initiated? Who should be responsible for the application, the cost of it? Is my memory serving me right on that? Okay.
So is this fairly recent? Like within your memory lifetime?
This conversation started, I would say, a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Maybe almost 2
About
years
2.
ago.
But the ground was given to them way before that. Yeah, it came up
How
with
long
the
time ago?
Summerhill Lane and the Fowers
Correct.
plat amendment, where
Yeah.
we realized there were 2 zonings on one lot.
So we're gonna continue to have these little notches until all the private property owners have chosen to do that zone map amendment. I think we were trying to encourage the entire 5, 6 home block to kind of jointly pursue this, because then they could spread out the cost more easily, but it looks like just one person.
One of the hesitations, again, just to remind you of just us initiating it, was where does it stop? I mean, we have some ag land within the city that should be residential, or do we go in and say, you know what, you're no longer ag, we're gonna force you to be residential? So where does our responsibility as a city, do we wait for an applicant? Public facilities zone, kind of different though. It's not much a resident or anybody can do in a public facility zone if you're not an entity, a governmental entity, or a school district, right? So that's where you as a council have to decide where, Matt Layton has gone through this process to initiate this, and we encouraged that it would be the entire block. So that's what.
I'm just surprised that all the residents didn't pitch in.
Right.
It would have been vastly less expensive.
I know.
When it's all said and done. But
So that's why we're here where we are today is Matt Layton has, remodel and other things he would like to do with his property, which this zoning prevents that from happening, so.
So Shaylin, it's Reading Elementary. They just gave them a little bit of their property because of a drainage problem.
Got it.
So that's where the property came from, was Reading Elementary, and they just gave it to the people that backed up onto it. So a lot of the people probably won't put out the money or the effort, because if it doesn't affect what they want to do in their backyard, there's no reason to do it. It's just like, we always say, if it doesn't affect you, you're not going to mess with it. And
Gotcha.
so for some people that just have a normal backyard, they don't care.
until they want to
Until-
do some
Yeah,
remodeling,
unless
like,
they want to do
I
that.
should have done it at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
short-sighted, I think.
Yeah.
It sounded like some of y'all knew the backstory, and I was thinking, I don't know this backstory.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. That's helpful.
Questions for Sydney? All right, I don't believe the applicant's here. I don't see
We've
Matt.
got Nate Jones on Zoom here on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, Nate, you're here for behalf of the applicant. It's your time
Yes.
to present, or if you so choose, otherwise I go to the public hearing.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, here you go.
Okay. Yes. So I am the contractor hired. We're working on a permit for a retaining wall along with the swimming pool. So that's we're working with Matt to get that taken care of. So yes, I'm here representing him and really just here to answer questions if there are any. It's like Sydney said, it's pretty straightforward what we're asking for. So
I don't see any council making questions right now, but hang on because we'll go to a public hearing. And
okay.
if there's any public comment that the staff or you, the applicant, needs to respond to, then you might want to do that at that point in time. So,
I'll hang tight.
all right, we'll go to a public hearing on regarding the zoning map amendment, the Layton property at 2090 North, 400 West. That public, I'll just state your name and where you're from, if you're so inclined, and so that public hearing is now open. Seeing nobody else online and nobody responding from the public in person, I will close the public hearing and we'll come back to if there's any further questions that you may have thought of in the moments of silence for either Sydney or Nathan Jones. Any? Then I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2024-18, amending the zoning map for the property located at 2090 North, 400 West, known as parcel 07-225-0417, from public facilities medium to residential low.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, let's start with Councilman Summerhays going to the right.
Aye.
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 Passing unanimously. Thank you, Sydney.
Thanks, y'all, for making it easy.
Oh, get back up here. We gotta get you.
He is not coming back.
She was running. All right, let's go to item number 2. Back in May, we had a presentation from Nate Allen with Utah Approves about one method of voting. And he was invited by Council Member Haven. So we have some handout material of some things that he presented before, but I will also turn it over to you and not do all the introducing.
Thank you. Yes, by way of reminder disclosure, I and my firm did previously represent Utah Approves, so we don't currently represent them, but I know a little bit about what it is that they're trying to do. Utah Approves, so by way of some background, the Utah legislature established under the election code one way of voting, which is you vote for one person on the list and whoever gets the most votes wins. Several years ago, the Utah legislature initiated a pilot program to allow for ranked choice voting as an option. It wasn't something that anybody was required to adopt, but ranked choice voting was an option for cities and counties if they chose to adopt it. Some people like ranked choice voting. There are also some downsides to ranked choice voting. It's complicated and clerks find it very difficult when you're trying to maneuver around. So what Utah Approves wants to do is they want to pitch to the Utah legislature a second option. This is not something that cities or counties or anybody would be required to do. It would be at the individual cities or county or whatever, their election. But the idea would be to allow an additional optional method of voting whereby if you have a number of people who are running for an office, people could vote for more than one person. So say that I have 4 people that are running for office and I support 2 of the 4, I could bubble in 2 and the county clerk would run them through and they would tally it up and whoever gets the most votes would be the winner. So as I understand it, county clerks like this because it wouldn't require any change to the way that they're currently processing things. They would just run it through and whoever gets the most votes gets it. It is a purely optional plan that Utah Approves is trying to push through. They just want to go to the Utah legislature and say that there is some support to give cities and counties the option to do this if they want to do it. Nobody's being forced to do this. They're just trying to create an alternative option. So Utah Approves has asked us as a city, so there are some other cities who have provided supporting letters that they can take to the legislature. Utah Approves has asked for the Centerville Council to consider providing a similar method or a similar letter of support. just saying Centerville supports this. Nate has proposed a letter, which he circulated to all of us, and which is in the packet. As I was looking at some of the other letters that some of the other cities, and thank you for pointing this out, Mayor, some of the other cities have individual council members signing, some have some council members signing. I don't really have strong preference. I had honestly just anticipated that we would sign it, like the mayor would sign a letter if we approved this, like on behalf of the city, without individual people signing, but that's something to discuss. The other thing that I noticed in the proposed letter that Nate had submitted, it says, we are interested in the possibility of trying approval voting. I don't know if we're interested in the possibility of trying it or not. My thought is I always want to try to give cities and counties as many tools in their toolbox as the Utah legislature will give them, so that we have more authority and more discretion over how we run our elections and how we operate our government for our residents. So I'm always in favor of giving us more tools if we so choose to do it, and if we choose that we don't want to do it, no worries. Doesn't hurt us at all, but it might help other cities who might want to try this alternative method approach it. So I asked Mayor to put this on our agenda to consider whether we would be interested in presenting a letter similar to what Nate has suggested, just saying that we as Centerville would like to express our support for adding approval voting as an option for municipal elections in 2025. So that is my proposal. Gina, you're looking puzzled.
Well, this is my thought, is why is it that they're coming and asking for the cities to support it? Why not a petition that individuals sign? I guess I would rather see this coming from our residents, not necessarily from us. As I've given this some thought over the past few weeks, that's my question. Do you know?
So I don't know the answer to that question. I get the sense that the Utah legislature is just looking to see, would communities even be interested in doing this? And so rather than it's expensive to have to go out and try to get surveys on everybody. So, we represent our residents, so I think the thought, and I am not trying to speak for Nate because I don't know his thought process, this is just me speculating, but it's, hey, if I could go out and see if there are some communities who might be willing and pitching some support, then they could take that to the legislature to say, hey, there are some municipalities that would be interested in doing this. Why don't you guys go ahead and create a provision in the code that would allow municipalities to do it? I can't even say that today. I don't know what my problem is. Municipalities, if they wanted to do it. Okay.
My question along those lines is, I've starting in 1992, I've been either a state or county delegate practically every year. I go to my caucus meetings, and I don't have a preference one way or another voting, approval, ranked choice, how we do it presently. I think that depending on the size of the candidates and the type of race it is, one works better than the other, depending on the situation. So I'm not, I think you look at an election and see what will look best in that election. My only question on this is does it, going along with what Councilwoman Hirsch said, does it make it look like that is the direction we're going, and we don't support those other methods of voting still? That we're all in on approval voting, and whereas, I'm just speaking for myself, whereas I'm for all three voting methods, depending upon the size and what type of election.
I like that suggestion, Mayor. If this council, and Gina brings up a good point, but this doesn't have to be the draft letter that we choose. We could have the draft language, Mayor, to your point, say we're in favor of providing multiple options or we're supportive of providing constituents with multiple options to vote, including these three types of voting. And that way it's not necessarily, hey, we are supportive of one avenue. We are supportive of different multiple avenues of voting. Gina, to your point, I can't get inside Nate's head either. I mean, I was the second council member that said, sure, let's put it on the agenda to discuss.
Well, I'm fine with having it discussed. That's just the
Yeah.
question I've had.
So my only thought would be is I know that there are other, so I don't know how many of individuals here know about the Rio Grande plan. You can research it, but essentially it is a proposal to eliminate the east-west barrier downtown by creating a better intermodal hub where you're bringing the train below grade and then opening up a plaza and you get a better east-west connection. They're taking this similar approach by trying to at least go to elected officials and say, hey, is this something that you would possibly be behind as elected officials, as opposed to, going door to door to door. It's not a tacit saying approval from a council or from a legislative body that says, hey, we're gung-ho, we're backing this. It is, we're open to the idea. So I guess that's why they may do it. Gina?
So let's talk about the existing law. Right now you can pick between, like most votes, just you pick one candidate, or like in the case of city councils, you maybe pick a couple or something, but you pick whatever.
One per office.
There's also ranked choice voting. Can cities go from one to the other whenever they want?
Yes.
Davis County won't do rank choice. It's too
I know, but
expensive.
if the county allowed it,
Right.
is that, I mean, you could say, the thing that I have a concern with is different voting methods could become politically charged, just like we've had arguments over political boundaries in Utah. That would be my concern, is if we're gonna, like, I'm with the mayor, whatever the voting is, fine, but you've gotta stick with it. It's gotta be the same way every time, I think.
And I don't feel like I can represent I feel like this needs to be the people, not me as a council person speaking for them. So as Centerville, I don't feel like I can sign the letter and support that, because I feel like I am giving the support and I have no feedback from my residents. So I probably wouldn't be comfortable with signing the letter, I'm sorry.
And I think I'm supportive of optionality.
Yeah, I respect if you guys are not comfortable in preparing the letter. Nate had asked us to respond, and I wanted to be able to get back to him timely, even if the answer was no. For what it's worth, that's why I had suggested taking out the line about we are interested in the possibility of trying approval voting, because I don't know that we need to weigh in on whether we are interested in it at this point or not.
Yeah.
I like to give us, like I said, I like to give not just us, Centerville, but also cities in general, more tools in their toolbox, which is what I view this proposal is doing. And I think that the language that Nate has proposed, if you take out that language, I mean, all he is proposing is that we believe, and this is the way he phrases it, that the Centerville City Council believes that more voting method options such as approval voting should be made available for use to cities. We believe the state should allow local jurisdictions to explore more methods than the sole method previously allowed, which is ranked choice voting. So again, as I understand it, Utah approves is just trying to
Meaning you
allow.
would delete the last sentence.
Yeah, like, and we could simply say that, we would like to express our support for adding approval voting as an option for municipal elections, whether we choose to do it or not. I just viewed it as not just for Centerville, but also supporting cities more generally. Because maybe we don't want to do it. Maybe our citizens, maybe the feedback that we get from our citizens is, hey, Centerville, we don't want to do it. And we say, great, we don't do it. But maybe this helps other cities whose residents are supportive of it to say, hey, yeah, we might want to do something different. And then it gives supports for their cities.
I just feel like if
Can I ask a question?
Huh?
Shaylin,
Sure.
does this option, and I think ranked choice kind of fits into this, but does it take away the one vote, one person, one vote idea?
No.
If you have one candidate that you vote for, and somebody else can vote for 3 or 4, how do you make that straight in your brain?
Well, because each person gets to vote for the number of people that they support. So you may only support one person, but I may be perfectly fine with 2 people right? I may really want either these two people, but not that person. So that allows me to say, I support both of these people, but not the third person.
But that's.
But then they're voting, it's almost like they're voting twice.
Yeah.
If like, let's just say Brian.
I think what
votes
Brian's maybe
one.
getting from a mathematical perspective is if instead of voting for 3 people on the approval choice, you vote for 1 person,
Sure.
should the math really be, I'm going to divide up my 1 vote and say, a third of my vote to this person, a third of this vote to my person, a third to that person. I think that maybe, is that what you're getting at, Brian? That you're not, approval choice may dilute my 1 vote because somebody else has voted 3 times.
That they may support more candidates.
They may support Court, but they get 3 votes. By the same logic, though, Brian, they are not voting for the other 2 candidates, which means they don't get the other 2 candidates for your sole vote, wouldn't have your support, and therefore they would also be benefited by that.
But you're still diluting the one
Potentially,
vote
that's what I'd love to-
mathematically because.
I would love to hear
he
Nate's
votes for
response to that,
one,
if you had one.
I
as it
vote
relates
for
to
2,
dilution.
you vote for 2, you vote for 2. Now those people that got those 2 votes have now got as many votes as he had, but they were only still 1 person.
And you're not
I
definitely
think-
getting the person that all of that the majority want, because it is washing it out. So it
But
could
the
be,
majority
Actually,
do want it.
but not necessarily, because mathematically, they got lower, I mean, so I vote, 3 people voted for 3, but.
The winner got the most approval votes.
Right. I see your point, Brian. I think that the intent behind this.
I know,
Because
but-
let me use simple math, right? Let me use simple math. If we're doing it and I only get 1 vote, everybody only gets 1 vote, and we have 3 candidates. A third could vote for A, a third could vote for B. 33%, 33%, 34%. The person who gets 34% wins, even though they don't have a majority of the people that are voting for them. I think that approval voting is trying to say, hey, what we want to do is encourage people to, we want the person who is elected to be the person that gets the majority of the votes. So if I would say I would vote for A and B but not C, it could end up in that circumstance that the majority of people actually support A, whereas if it's only just 1 vote, you get C, even though C has 34%. I think that
It's a
that's
consensus building.
It's a consensus building.
And that's-
I think
Would you
that's
do
it.
away with caucuses, and would you do away with primaries?
No, this is
Because
only for municipal elections.
yeah.
the municipal elections, I ran with 12 people the first time I ran for city council. There were 12 people running, and it was narrowed down to 6 because there were 3 spots. So are you going to narrow it down, or are you going to let 12 people run, and then the people can vote for who they want?
I
that would
think
still-
where this helps, and this is why when I called up Councilwoman Heyman about it, but I haven't seen approved voting done, so I don't know if it's going to work. Best example I can give you, 4 years ago, we had 1 candidate come out of Republican convention for governor, and then 3 more got signatures. So you had 4 people on the ballot, and the winner, who was Spencer Cox, didn't even have 50% of the vote. And, you know, and a lot of people didn't like that, including myself, okay?
I agree.
Because you were choosing to potentially vote for somebody else because you didn't want the other person to win. And that's not how it should be. You should be able to vote for the person that you want to vote for because you don't want somebody else to get in there. Now, this may become a moot point because I've been following it. After what we had at our conventions this past year, the legislature is going to be totally revamping the system, I think, this coming session, as far as caucuses, as far as conventions, and that type of thing. But I do like the fact of multiple voting methods. The one problem I do get concerned with this one is our county does the traditional voting method. We tried to go to potentially ranked choice here a couple of years ago, but we were late to the table and council voted it down. We would have had to run the election ourselves. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the county is going to, if we vote to have the county run our election for us, As of right now, they're not giving this approval voting as an option, or any other method, ranked choice either. It's just traditional voting, so.
But the county may, if we send a letter that says it's one option that we're okay with, if it
Yeah.
comes to it, then other cities may say, yeah, we would consider it as well. And then maybe the county says, oh, this is something we want to put to the public.
If I can
To
share,
be clear, I am not advocating for approval voting, right? Like, I'm not up here saying, hey, we should adopt this method in future municipal elections. I feel like I've said this, and so I'm sorry to get on my soapbox, but I just like giving us as a city more tools.
My concern is that the councils will use it to their advantage, because depending on whether I think I can win better this way, or I win better this way, and I'm on the council and I'm gonna run, I have control over the election. Somebody running against me doesn't have control over the election. So I feel like that gives me an unfair advantage because I'm on the council.
But we already have an option under ranked choice voting. This would just be.
We don't have an option for
Just-
ranked choice voting.
But couldn't we, if we
No.
wanted to and not use Davis
yes,
County?
we can
if
run
we
it
wanted to
ourselves
do
or
it?
use Utah County to
Yeah.
run it for us.
Right, but it would be way more expensive. So it's probably not gonna.
So if I can offer a little bit of history, when ranked choice voting became pretty popular, I've had conversations with Davis County, and many counties had no interest in conducting ranked choice voting just because of the overall cost. So I mean, just an observation, it's kind of fascinating how ranked choice voting came to be, and Utah Approves is trying to take a different approach. And I'm not quite sure how you get approved. But ranked choice voting was all of a sudden given as an option to the counties, and the majority of the councils, I think 28 of them says, or 25, no thanks, we're not interested, right? But Utah County says, sure, we'll give it a shot, right? So the state's saying this is an option, and all the people who run the election saying, no thanks, we don't like your option. Utah Approves is definitely one of those options that at that time, even 4 years ago, this is not what it was called, was saying this is potentially a viable option for Davis County. So I'm just saying this was shared by the county as this is a viable option. Something similar to this. I don't think it was necessarily Utah Approves, but kind of like how do you vote for an MVP after the end of a season, right? You've got these first, second, thirds. That kind of concept was agreed upon. So I think really the conversation can happen with the county who runs our election saying, what do you support? Because ultimately we're kind of beholden to how they want to run it unless we want to spend $40,000, $50,000 a year. Utah Approves. Utah election, or municipal elections are meant to be nonpartisan, right? So it doesn't necessarily impact us, Mayor. I think your option's great when we talk about state level where it becomes partisan.
Yeah.
At our level, I don't know where Utah Approves really changes, but other than the consensus building, which I really love. I think that idea is great, where you have majority vote more than 50%. It's no longer meeting 100% threshold, it's 200%. If you're voting for multiple people, but you're starting to see majority of people support multiple candidates. So what I'm trying to share is not quite sure what the process is to tell the county or the state how we want to make this an option. I'm not quite sure to eliminate primaries from the city. At least I don't think that'd be my recommendation, having 12 people run the entire time, because they can get nasty, and I don't know if you want nasty politics. But Utah Approves is meant to say, get rid of the negative. You know, you don't no longer fighting for the one vote. You're fighting for just a good campaign, and so maybe it's not as negative for 4 or 5 months anymore. I don't know. Anyway, those are just my thoughts from the administrative side.
I just feel like that's something the people should decide because of exactly what Robin said. I can't think of it now, but you know how there's always unintended consequences with everything we sign or do. I agree with Robin in the fact that if this somehow benefits a council member, or at least they think it does it become not the best option for the city? I don't think the city council should be the ones sending this recommendation forward. I think it should be coming from the residents. I think it's a fine tool. I don't think it doesn't work. I don't know what the unintended consequences are, which makes me a little uncomfortable, just because of the fact that, you know, we have all run for public office, and I can't think of how this would benefit me versus the other way, but that's not to say there isn't a benefit there that I'm not comfortable sending without, I think our residents need to be the ones asking for it.
What I'm hearing from you is maybe we don't know enough about it.
I do feel like in my particular case, that might be.
What's gonna be the result?
Yeah, I just, you know how there's always that unintended consequence, oh, we rezoned this and shoot, we didn't mean for that to happen.
Right.
I can't see what it is here, but I just, maybe it's what you said, I'm not comfortable enough with it.
And I agree with the mayor. I know part of my problem is I'm kind of like you. I don't know the unintended consequences, and I don't know enough about it to be recommending it or saying that I'm okay with it. I'm not comfortable.
Really use a good mathematician to like explain to me.
Well, I appreciate the discussion. I'm getting the sense from at least three of you that it's going to be a no vote. So I really appreciate us being able to have the discussion. At least it allows us to go back to Utah Approves and say that we appreciate the presentation, but that we're not going to be providing them with a letter, and at least that they know that. And perhaps if they want to gather more information and come back, then maybe we would be willing to listen.
How are they coming on their education process? Because I think this really, Councilwoman, is an education process by them, because there's not many people that understand the ins and outs. I'm pretty diehard, like politics, almost as I love sports, but I don't get them all the ins and outs of them. So
I think it'd be fascinating to see if it came up again. I think it'd be really nice to have a county election official come and talk to us a little bit about it. And maybe they would give a little more context and feedback if it comes up again.
a county official and somebody that's really knowledgeable in all the three methods of voting.
I'm just assuming that a county election official would be. So like if we're asking, does this dilute a vote, they could speak to it. Maybe they couldn't, but maybe we could ask that question in advance if it comes up in a year or two.
It'll be interesting in a year or two to see what our state leaders have done, because it may not matter one way or another how we feel.
Right.
I just looked it up. I didn't see a bill file open for Utah Approves yet.
Yeah.
So doesn't necessarily mean it won't, but no bill file yet.
Thank you for the discussion. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, let's go to item number 3. This is abandonment of the Centerville City Culinary Waterline that runs through West Bountiful City. And look who we got coming up. Mr. Michael Carlson himself.
Mayor, City Council, glad to be here again. Jennifer, could you pull up the map? I'd kind of like to do a little quick history so you understand exactly what's happening. Do you have that one I provided?
You didn't provide me anything.
Okay, I didn't provide anything. I got a copy here, but anyway. If you could just pull up Pages Lane.
Do you want to come over here and go over
He's
here?
gone to a map now instead.
Not really, but I will.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, Randall got it. Where's your pointer at?
Right here.
Oh, okay. Have to learn all these tricks over again. No, bottom line is we had a line that ran through West Bountiful. Due to the soil contamination through Sorrow Still, we wasn't able to run a line through there like we've been able to do with the Flex. And so what we have is an abandoned line, about a little over 1,500 feet of a line that runs through West Bountiful.
Wait, where am I?
He's getting real close. I'm getting dizzy.
We're getting car sick.
This is the frontage where we gotta go.
Oh, I gotta go west. Sorry, that's what I was missing. I gotta go west. There it is.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
So
It's on the wrong side of the tracks.
there we go. This works perfect. Don't move. Oh, go back or pull it down. There we go. Perfect. So the bottom line is back in around 1990. So realize this water main 34 years old. Okay, and so we brought it down underneath the freeway. We couldn't go over here and tie it into Centerville, through Centerville. We like running our water lines through Centerville, not another town. And so what we did, and I can't find the agreement, but what we did, it is about right in here. We ran a water line all the way down, brought it across here, and brought it up and tied it back into the Centerville City side. That gave us another water source into the industrial park. So what we have now, we've actually got hit at one point right in here. We had to go into emergency repair a long time ago, but it can still happen. So with the flex coming in, we were able to take and run the water line through here and then bring it back down through Centerville. So our water main is in our town. And the nice thing that really worked out good about this, we've had a lot of good development down in there. We not only have, we have a stretch that is probably from here over that would cause us to be, if we couldn't get water, we may have a problem and have to feed down by McDonald's and back up. But with this Hogan's project, that fine line still, we've been able to make several tie-ins to where we have lots of options in keeping our residents and keeping our businesses in water. So at this time, this water line, when we did the flex, we brought it in up through here and we ran a service down and tied it into this resident here. That's the end of our service line. We have no more services. We have no more fire hydrants. We have nothing. So the idea came that maybe we could offer this up to West Bountiful. Like I say, I couldn't find an agreement on how we would abandon the line. We looked back, I looked through some of Randy's old files. I wasn't able to find any agreement. There probably is one out there. So usually when you abandon a line, you either fill it full of sand, you either remove it or whatever, kind of like what we're talking with down the road with some of our utilities in our right-of-ways. We may have to have them start removing it, right? So the purpose that is really nice about this, that helps our fellow community, they need to replace this line coming in right here and along here, and having a 10-inch line, even though it's 34 years old, it's still in okay shape. They can come in, tie in their residents, they can put fire hydrants in it, saves them doing a lot of road construction. You know, it is a big benefit for them, but they take over the line. And the nice thing that I like about this is I don't no longer have to blue stake it, I no longer have to maintain it, and I don't have to worry about something that's in another town. So the big plus is we want to liquidate this line, and I think by giving it to West Bountiful is a good fellowship thing from community to community. You know, you could actually come up with a price if you wanted to, but my feeling is I would give it to them, let them take it over, and I don't have to worry about it no more.
The price offset is us not having to do that.
Exactly.
Or
And-
removing it.
Or removing it, or future liability.
Like, do they want it?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was gonna.
Yeah, I mean, before I started the legwork, I reached out to West Bountiful. I go, what do you think? Is that something you guys want to do? And from there, we've been kicking it around. But till we get to this point where we're at right now, I wasn't ready to do it because I wanted to make sure everything was tied in and everything worked on our side. I'm confident now that we're in good shape. We could give that line to them. It's not hooked up anymore anyway. They can make their connections and move forward and proceed to be a great benefit for both of us. So any questions I can answer on that? I mean, my recommendation, I should have maybe put a little bit more in there. My recommendation is for City Council to allow Lisa to go ahead and set up an agreement with West Bountiful to take over that line so that we legally do it right. In this, it kind of says that we want to just kind of give it to them. But I think Lisa needs to get with somebody, our city attorney needs to get with somebody with West Bountiful and make that transfer so it's all legal. So that's my recommendation.
We think it's best to do it in writing, so it's very clear that we have abandoned it, and then we transfer ownership. The sewer district actually requires developers to dedicate their lines to the sewer district, and then they record that. We don't do that, but anyway, we could look at that model and maybe even make sure that it's papered up. But that's the idea.
Does that make sense in this particular case to have it deeded over to them?
I think an agreement, an interlocal agreement is
Is
probably
good
the
enough.
best, and we'll have that in place, and so if anything happens, it's not our line anymore.
So do we have a specific latitude, longitude, where we're gonna say, hey, this is where it starts and stops in that agreement? Like, how do we define exactly
We can give
by
them
the inch where that's gonna start and stop?
we can give them where we discontinued it at, or where we stopped and stopped the connection. The thing that they're gonna have to do a lot of is we don't know exactly where that line is. It was put in before the GPS stuff came available.
Well, could you
So
even
we
just
have a
say
couple
that-
locations. There is no tracer wire with it, but they gotta find it anyway. And the thing that really excites me the most about getting rid of that is I get rid of that water line along that high-pressure gas line. So the more I can get rid of, the happier I am. You know, and if somebody punctures a hole in that line, and let's just say, for instance, and then all of a sudden the sand and the gravel, the dirt can go down into the pipe, we could come up with a void that we would be liable for as well. So, I mean,
Yeah, and what I was just getting at is from a city perspective, it's just nice to have a specific point of demarcation where that ownership begins and ends.
Yeah, you'd have
Yeah.
to define it.
And I don't know if we can define it now, or if we have to wait until you actually excavate to know exactly where that
Well-
connection or disconnection.
I get where you're
is
at
gonna-
there.
Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah, it does. So this point, we actually discontinued it up in here, which is part of Centerville. So we would actually go down to this point right in here, which I can come very, very close because there's a valve there right at the boundary
Right, so the
line.
valve's gonna be that
Right,
point
so I
where
can
we
use
know.
that valve there, and then also, where did 640 West go down here, where we tied into the north, we know where we discontinued that out,
And
so.
is that another valve, or?
No, that's just, we got to discontinue where we tied on and ran up into the flex.
Yeah,
So it's
So-
an elbow,
east.
Okay.
So, yeah, we no longer.
We can be within feet.
okay.
And then one of the conditions I do want to share with you that I've shared with Dwayne is that, I don't know if you know, but this portion right here, their park is in Centerville. So I'd like a welcome to Centerville on their walking path.
That's a Brent negotiation, I'm staying out of
And
that
we're
one.
gonna rezone this to high, residential high. And then we're gonna go from.
You mean attached residential?
Yes.
Who is Dwayne? Is that their city manager?
Yeah, he's great.
There is a little competition between those two, just in case you're wondering.
So we can actually have a one-on-one soccer tournament in their park, right? 'Cause
Well, they own it, but it is in our city.
Oh, okay.
So Mike, where you pointed is a little bit west of where the pipeline is. Do we need to pull that little block or half block of pipeline out?
That's what
No, we're
that was
good.
my question, because if you're,
We're trying to.
Where we
disconnect
want to
it.
be is, in our town, we're good with where it's at. We can
But you're-
leave that short distance
But
that's
you went
abandoned.
down a little ways and said to that valve, where's the boundary?
Well, okay, so there's the cell tower, if I get it right, is about right in here.
Is that where the boundary
And
is?
the valve is right there, it's within, the valve is within probably 3 or 4 feet.
Yeah, that's
With
what
a
we could just
boundary.
use the city boundary.
So I mean, we can be very, very close. I mean, we just go to the boundary, have them unhook it, and go from there, and cap the upstream side of it. We'll be dead. We would be dead from there to there anyway.
Okay.
But I personally believe it's a win-win for all of us. Especially for me, because I don't have to have somebody go blue stake it no more to take care of it. So anyhow, any other questions?
So if there's no other questions, I guess we're looking for some sort of approval for like an interlocal agreement or
Yeah,
something
just
like that.
direct
just a
staff.
recommendation, right?
Yeah, just, if you're in favor of that, we'll bring it back.
I'll make a motion that we donate the 1,558 linear feet of 10-inch PVC culinary pipe located on Porter Lane to West Bountiful City using an interlocal agreement going from Centerville City's boundary to, what west is that? 640 west in West Bountiful, correct?
Tina, can I make a friendly amendment at least?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I would just say approximately to be determined on the distance by staff.
Can I look at Lisa? Would you prefer that we wait to make a motion until you bring back an interlocal agreement for our
Yes,
review
just
and
direct
approval?
staff to prepare an interlocal agreement.
Okay.
and We'll figure out those
Why
parameters.
don't I just start over?
You have
We
that,
don't know the answer to those very specific.
you have that right since
We
you
just
made
wanna
that
know. We
motion
didn't
and it
wanna
wasn't
spend-
seconded.
I was wondering what she was really wanting to say before she
was like,
didn't want to cut
"Not
off
yet,
anybody.
not
She was being so courteous.
You're being so courteous. You can tell me to be quiet.
So you
I'll
just need a
just recommend-
recommendation, or do you want us to, you don't want us to vote?
Just a
on it?
recommendation.
They
so
just want the
that-
recommendation.
Recommend
Basically,
that
we're
we-
spending staff time, so we wanted to make sure you're on board.
Okay,
Yeah, so
we would like to recommend that staff prepare an interlocal agreement for this. How's that?
We would love to.
Still second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great.
Sorry, Lisa.
I would have made the same.
And thanks,
type of
Mike,
motion.
for doing this. I think this is, I'm glad that you were on it, and
Yeah, that's
thanks for
awesome.
catching that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, we got item number 4, WFRC Trails Grant Match. Councilman Summers knows some stuff about this. Mike Eggett knows some stuff about this. He's been inquiring, something that I understand has some timeliness potentially by the end of the month, right? So he'll fill us in.
Yeah, I'm sure Mike knows far more than I do at this point, now that he's been able to have a couple weeks of homework done.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just run through really quickly what I found out. I was tasked with looking into this grant opportunity. We were approached as a city by Ted Knowlton with North Salt Lake City, who happens to also be the deputy director of WFRC, and then representation from Bountiful City. I think it was Kate Bradshaw who had indicated that Bountiful City was on board with this concept. The discussion was a grant application opportunity that is through the Transportation and Land Use Connector Grant Award Program through WFRC. It's an annual grant program that is all about creating connectivity and connection study opportunities throughout communities, and trying to create regional connections that make sense between the communities, and utilizes quite a bit of transportation dollars to generate that fund. The application deadline that is coming up is going to be December 12th, and that's the reason that we've been invited to participate in this, to try to get in front of that. In talking to Mr. Knowlton, Councilmember Knowlton, he has indicated very positively that this would look favorable, seeing the 3 cities, and then kind of ancillary city being Farmington, and that connection to Salt Lake being something that would be desirable to WFRC to grant the awarding for this grant application. The request is for a $10,000 matching grant from each city. That'd be the city's portion individually, and combined total would be then $30,000 between the 3 communities for that grant contribution. And when I talked to him, he did indicate that they would seek $150,000 be the matching, or excuse me, the grant awarding amount. But obviously they could pare that down. So it's a kind of a shooting for the stars number would be the best way that I explain it, but he felt pretty good about it. The intent, as you can see, the 7 goals that are listed. I can read them all if you'd like, but you probably have reviewed them. They're all good reasons to do it. Again, it's a lot of trying to find the best alignment, look at any potential issues or obstacles, identify budget for it. One of the things he did say is even maybe some preliminary concepts and engineering designs, which I thought was pretty would be a beneficial boost to a project like this. Sometimes that's where a lot of the expense comes, as a community starting to look at options to design and to develop these routes, even after the routes are established. And then obviously they would be doing discussion steering between the cities and staff and whoever else is participating, and making sure that the alignments are all evaluated. And what typically you see with outcomes of projects like this, you'll see 2 or 3 routing options, and again, different budgetary alternatives of what those options might cost to develop. So the benefit of it could be to provide I use the term urban trail spine because I couldn't think of a better word, but I think that's the right word. It's a regional connective routing system that provides alternative access to vehicle use, right? So trails, bikes, those kinds of modes of access and connection. It also provides maybe more opportunities for residents from other communities to come into Centerville more readily. If there's a facility or a store they want to use and they maybe don't want to drive a vehicle, it creates a more direct access. So again, in my mind, I'm thinking even like our commercial development hub areas, that's a good incentive to have something around and adjacent to those to bring people in to spend some money, which would be a benefit to the city. The other benefit is looking at the partnershiping aspect, where as we partnership with other communities and even WFRC, it shows that we're interested in these kind of discussions, and it hopefully would help us to have a more positive granting route in the future in working with other granting requests from WFRC. Obviously, in addition to the $10,000 grant participation, there would be staff time involvement if we were to participate. in talking to the city manager and talking to Brant, the funding would come out of the transportation fund of the city. It was his suggestion to that request, if that was something that we would
Out
want
of
to do.
the sidewalks, essentially, that line item, and work with Mike and Mark, that if there was a future need, we'd come to you and ask for some budget funds to make up that difference. But that's where we'd pull it from now.
And then when I talked to Ted, he had indicated that the awarding would be in the spring, and then obviously the program or the project would start quickly thereafter, as far as putting out the request for proposals and then participating as cities in it. So that's a long and short of what's in your packet. I do want to also share with you, I did receive an email earlier today from the city engineer. I feel like his comments would be helpful to share. This is what he said about it. He said, I noticed the WFRC trail grant agenda item on the CC agenda tonight and just wanted to voice my support for Centerville's participation in the project. WFRC has been very generous to Centerville City over the years, and we've received over 10 million in grants from them over the past couple of decades for street projects, CMAC, which is another grant fund, and TAP projects, which is also a grant fund. The effort that it will take to study a viable and feasible trail alignment from NSL, North Salt Lake, through Centerville will be a significant effort, but worth Centerville's participation, in my opinion. Respectfully submitted, Kevin. So I just want to share that with you as well.
Yeah, and I think the background to this, Ted approached me after our work session that occurred with the WFRC a few weeks back. And part of those discussions is we're looking at urban pathways, routes, not just trails. We're talking about transportation and what alignments do we like best as different cities. So we're starting to talk, hey, Bountiful, do you guys like your Main Street better for this, or do you like 200 West better for this? And I think that kind of maybe somebody triggered over at Bountiful, hey, we're pursuing this. Why aren't we also engaging our sister cities in this? That's my guess, but Ted approached me and said, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? And I said, hey, if we can put up 10 to get up potentially 40 or 50,000, and it feels like it's a tie with what UTA and UDOT are looking at, as well as what we've been presented tonight in our general plan, this seems like kind of a no-brainer to me.
Me as well, but let me ask this one question. And Mike, I know you may not know the answer, but at some point in time, we got some WFRC money, and there was a study done, active transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone in the room? It was before my time on
I was
council.
on when they did that. We did it with,
Was it ever adopted? It was completed, but was it adopted?
uh-huh. It didn't get adopted,
We-
but it was
That was my
completed.
understanding.
Didn't officially adopt it. That was when I first started, so it's probably
It was
6
not adopted, it was created but not adopted.
I know this is more urban. I'm not sure what that was.
That one was more urban too.
That was more urban too. I guess I'm totally fine to support this, but I'm just wondering what makes it so that this is different than what they've already funded for us, I guess is
And
my
I'm glad you
question.
asked that, because I was here when they did the last study, and we supported it full, and we met with them several times. I didn't realize it wasn't adopted, but it was finished, and they brought the finished plan to us, so I kind of had the same thing. I mean,
did the
I'm glad to
previous
spend the
council not adopt
10,000.
it from?
I don't know. I don't think it was ever brought to us to adopt, whether it was a change in city managers, and so it just didn't get, I don't know why. I mean, we did not adopt it, we just didn't adopt it.
Councilman?
Yes, you know. Are you done yet? No.
Do you see where I'm coming from? I'm saying.
Right.
Why didn't it get? And I
Why
don't know
didn't
the-
it get adopted?
And that was my
I don't know the
thought.
answer to that.
And do
But
we
if it
already
didn't get
have
I
it?
think it's time to,
Kevin's coming forward.
Oh, good.
He's got a thought here.
please, enlighten us.
So my recollection is that was a kind of an overall plan of, okay, where are we going to put the active transportation in these different cities? This is more of a focused plan of, okay, where can we get a multi-use trail that's 10 feet wide, that's separated from the roadway? What is the alignment that the cities like? Do they like Orchard Drive and 4th East? Or do they like Main Street? Or do they like 2nd West and 4th West? So this is a more focused individual plan, is my understanding. It's
This
just
is project specific, not.
project specific. Whereas the other one was kind of a
That makes more
plan of,
sense.
okay, this is where active transportation throughout these cities might interconnect. That's my recollection.
And then I think the last comment is that, given Ted's position with WFRC, I think our odds of getting the grant are also high. So,
I didn't dare say that,
Careful
but,
saying that, but
So I gotta bring,
I'm just setting probabilities and possibilities.
I gotta bring up this, one, and I don't know that you can answer this, Mike, is, I don't know, I'm not so sure where WFRC gets all their money, but they dump a lot of money into projects throughout Davis County. And their vision, for the most part, I agree with, but not all of it, do I agree with. So are we beholding to them at all? I mean, I see that this is great. I mean, I think we need to make it safer for bikers. We need to give the biking option, the walking option, the bus option, the car option. But, I mean, is it just, hey, we put up 10 and we potentially get that grant, or is there the fine print that says, okay, but now we want this in your city, type of thing?
I think given my experience dealing with WFRC grants and dealing with the active transportation planning you're talking about, they will show a continued interest. So to the point, they won't mandate any expectation, but they'll ask, you've done this regional connector trail or this route. Have you made any deliverables on it? Have you as a city budgeted for any improvements along those lines of that route that we help to fund? So, they'll ask myself and Kevin and maybe Brant if there's any progress been made. They might ask a council member in a WFRC meeting if there's been any discussion of it, because they'll know of it, obviously, in funding it. They'll get that deliverable as well. But my experience has been that that's about the extent of any expectation. It's more just the dialogue will be there because now there'll have been a document that's been prepared and presented, and they'll want to know if the city's making progress.
Well, it's not a tit for tat or an earmark type of thing.
Right.
And Mayor, I think instead of putting us in a box, actually the last paragraph, the way I interpret it, it actually opens potential future doors.
Yeah.
Right.
So instead of being caged by a potential plan, it opens up more funding opportunities that they've described. So UDOT, the Utah Trail Network program, and the Beehive Bikeways, and then the combination of UDOT and WFRC on other funding programs. So having those doors potentially open to us for other future matching opportunities as it relates to us implementing a plan, if we get something we like, I think is what we benefit from.
And I was really impressed with when he said that they would be pursuing conceptual engineering. That's kind of a rare thing on these kind of projects, to get a push for conceptual engineering. That can be real expensive, so that was pretty positive.
I was just gonna say too, I think it aligns well with, I don't know if it's the governor's initiative to have connectivity in the trails. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, that we would work with other communities to make that happen and determine, how that urban framework comes from Bountiful into Centerville, and into North Salt Lake. So I think it just positions us well for future opportunities for funding.
That's what I'm hoping
That's
for.
coming from the state level, so.
That's what I'm hoping
That would be my caution, right, is that if we go for this is technical assistance granting, planning grant money, but there's gonna be a commitment financially we're making to fulfill whatever's produced out of that.
Yeah.
Now, these conversations have been somewhat divisive in the past. When we talked about 400 East and the reconstruction of that road, there was some talk about a separated multi-use path, which was a challenge. So that's kind of the direction we're going, and those conversations have been a little challenging in the past. So if we go this route, I think it's critical to understand what are we getting for $10,000, that we also need to be engaged to making sure we're not kind of left. Because I felt this was kind of an after fact, I feel like, coming to us at a workshop where that Bountiful and North Salt Lake have already established they're applying for this, and it's like, oh, we should include Centerville. That's where I kind of feel like I want to make sure we're not forgotten if we do participate in this financially.
So what's your recommendation?
So we need to
on
be
it, Brant?
engaged in the conversation. All I'm saying is I think there's an opportunity to see what options are out there, But you as a council need to be prepared that just because you go this route, it actually commits us potentially financially to other projects. Right now, we just had a meeting today about 400 East, and we're moving forward with that, and it's not a dedicated, separate multi-use path. So if this study comes out and says, hey, really, you should have this dedicated multi-use path, separated multi-use path on 400 East, it's like, well, we'll talk about that in 25, 30 years.
That was kind of my question. That was kind of my question.
Well,
to Mike.
he did-
Does this commit us to other things?
So
which
yes
we
and
don't
no.
necessarily
So
always
we get
agree
some
with.
good ideas of how we can connect. Now, how we go about doing that, I guess that's where this can kind of help us understand what our options are to get that connectivity. But we need to be at the table and participate.
And it's not necessarily separated lane. He made that clear when I talked to him. It's shared lane, it's widened
It
sidewalks.
could be
again.
anything,
The study,
right? So it can be
right.
anything. I'm just
So
giving
don't
you an
get locked
example
into
of.
separated lane.
It could be anything. Do we have an idea of where they're kind of focusing, where Bountiful and North Salt Lake looking? Do we have an
At this
idea?
point, when
The whole
police-
point is just seeing where
Yeah,
we
we
can
wouldn't
connect
know.
our
And
community,
I think
which is
if you're
kind
not
of.
at the- if you're not at the table, then you don't
You're
have
just not
part
gonna
of the
get any-
conversation.
But it also goes very much in
But I
line.
also think because you're not at the table, you don't get, the tail doesn't wag the dog, at least as it relates to what happens
That's
in our
true,
city.
too.
We have participation in why this, a route does or does not work for us.
Well, you just had a presentation from Chris Hupp talking about this very thing, and these
Correct.
actually go hand in hand. Is he
Yes.
saying that there's
Yeah.
opportunities to connect? Well, here's our opportunity to get a pretty good grant to build off what Chris just said. So $10,000 investment for potentially a great study, I think is an opportunity for us to see what that is. But be prepared to have some tough conversations, I guess, on what that looks like, right? And how we connect, so.
I do think we have to consider that we are gonna have to figure out a way to kind of fund some of this stuff. This is becoming more and more of a reality with, I just see that our community, 20 to 30 years from now, you may have more bikers and more walkers, and so I think it is an important part of our general planning process, and like it or not, we need to figure out how we're gonna fund it.
That's good insight, because you're probably right. Nobody can predict the future, but
We can't, but
as you start working from home, people can start be down to one car and doing more walking and biking. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
And
you've got these electric bikes too. I mean, I'm seeing our family out biking more and more, and we're going into other cities to do that.
yeah,
We just
that's
put the
my
little
point.
guy on an electric bike and he can keep up now,
Yeah.
so.
All right, any other questions for Mike? Discussion on this? Would somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-23, supporting the submittal of an application for the Transportation and Land Use Connection Grant to fund a collaborative study for active transportation routes connecting North Salt Lake to Farmington, and authorizing matching financial contribution equal to $10,000? Or do I need to state an amount? I think we need to state the amount, even though the resolution says it, Lisa.
Yeah,
I'm looking to you.
Up to.
Okay, up to $10,000.
Second.
We have a second on that. Further discussion? Let's vote.
Can I ask,
Yeah, go ahead.
when we get this money allocated for this, are we gonna have somebody that will voice our position on this? Will it be you, Mike? Okay.
I'd be glad to do
Mike
that.
and or Sydney.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Aye.
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 Hey, passed unanimously. Okay, let's go to summary action. We just have one item on summary action. It's a front-end loader. And Mike, is that why you stayed up close in case there was any questions on it?
Well, it's not often that I come and ask for a small amount of money, right? You know?
Yeah, I thought there was a typo.
But, yeah.
That's
There's no
amazing.
typo.
This is
I'd first
incredible.
I'd like to first say, I'd like to thank, Dave Walker and Dave Stark, in assisting this with, trying to keep our costs down. On the front end loader, yeah, it's $180,000 for a brand new machine. We're trading ours in for $178,000, which leaves a $2,000 balance. So we've had this current loader for, if I forgot to write down the months. I think it was 21 months if I did it right. So that's $95 a month we pay to have a piece of equipment sit in our yard to use however many hours we want in that month. So if you look at a year, it's $1,147 a month, or a year, to have that machine here. And the nice thing about it is this, we get the brand new machine, right? We give them our old one, we get a new one. It gets all the bells and whistles. But I'd like to pay a little tribute to Dave Stark. Dave Stark was the one that came to us and wanted us to start trading out our vehicles and seeing what we can do to save money. So I'm indeed grateful to come and ask for $2,000 for a $180,000 piece of equipment. So
Let's be honest, he's asked for 180, and that's what we're approving, but luckily he was able to collect 178.
yeah,
And sell of fixed assets too, so we're approving 180,000. I just want to make sure that's what the motion should state.
But I also want to point out that I appreciate Mike doing that, and as I talked about the agenda with Brant, that he says, no, I want this on there. And I said, yeah, from an accounting perspective, we're buying a $180,000 piece of equipment. But it's wonderful that you're getting $178,000 on trade-in, so.
we don't know how long this is gonna last, but you figure, bottom line, that includes wear on the tires. The only we paid for is fuel and oil.
They've threatened to take this program away for, 12 years now, so it's great, because we get it on state contract, which is a discounted rate. They take it back, and they're able to sell it on the market for what it's worth. And so it's a good deal for both of us, for both the.
I've watched this program go from, we had backhoes, loader backhoes that we were taking, we bought the new one and they were trading them out for free. We're getting free hose every year.
Once a year, it was awesome.
It's just like, it was incredible, and I think it's great we can take advantage of this stuff, and we should do it as long as we can and it makes sense. But I appreciate, Dave Stark, always looking for the way to save the bucks. And then you think of the maintenance cost. And then, when it gets, like the last loader, we're looking at huge costs to get it repaired. We don't, it's on warranty. We like that. I like that. So anyway, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, motion? State some dollar figures with it for us on your motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the trade-in of Public Works front-end loader for a new one from Wheeler Machinery for a cost difference of $2,000.
Second.
Motion is second. Councilwoman Hurst.
Aye.
You want?
I may want to hear the 180,000.
Okay, so the new loader's upfront cost is 180, and the current loader's trade-in value is 170 as part of an ongoing trade program with Wheeler Machinery. 180,000, not
178.
What did I say?
170.
Thank you, 178. Thank you.
You still have a second there?
I think,
That was me.
I
I
think
still
Shaylin seconded it.
I mean,
and-
notwithstanding the flub up on the 170 versus
Thank you.
178, but I will forgive
It won't be the last.
Okay. Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, minutes, November 6th work session, November 6th city council, and November 6th closed session minutes. Is there any changes to any of those minutes?
Jennifer, I just had one on the city council minutes, page 5, line 15. I don't understand what First Amendment ramifications before bracing potential coding adaptability even means. So I am going to suggest changing that to Councilmember Heyman indicated the necessity of properly understanding the First Amendment ramifications before deciding code amendment changes.
I'm sorry, can you, what page and line are you on again?
Page 5,
14 and 15.
14 and 15.
Oh, here, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I would just change 15 to say after ramifications before considering a code change.
Okay.
I read
blame
that a
the
couple of times
Yeah.
and I did not know what
Before
that
bracing,
meant.
whatever that means.
They're AI hallucination.
AI was doing something there.
Before bracing, meaning maybe supportive, like structural, so before.
It made me sound really intellectual, but I did not know what that meant.
It's a little too intellectual.
That was my only change.
Okay.
Anybody else with changes? Motion to approve the minutes with that change? Yeah. Something else?
I think I was here for the closed session on November 6th.
Councilmember Heyman. Sorry, I keep doing that. Councilmember Heyman was not here. I keep doing that because I keep on saying Heyman.
All the time.
Oh my God.
Lynn was
Did I
not
put
there
your
for
name?
the
I
closed
was not
session.
Yeah.
No, I'm not on there and she's not on there.
I didn't review the closed minutes.
Councilmember Hurst was here. Councilmember Heyman was not.
Well, you had
You
conflict.
just need to add hers.
Yeah, there was.
It just left off Gina, it just had Robin,
If you took
Brian,
it
and
from
me.
the previous closed session, remember, I was not in the previous closed session.
That may be what I did.
That might be what happened.
So now I need to go back and make sure I
So
took
check
you
and
off
see.
the right one.
Yes,
And put you
which would have
back
been the
on
last
right
one in October, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it would have been end of October, maybe when you were
Yeah,
dropped off.
yes, when I dropped off, yep.
Okay, thank you. Was there a second to the minutes?
I'll second it.
With those two changes?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's go to, the next item is monthly financial report, October 2024. Nate's highlighted some areas there. This is not a reporting a month when he goes over it, since it's not the end of a quarter. But that's there for your information, unless you have some questions that, in looking at it, that you wanted to bring up with Nate. All right, so that was provided for information, and thank you, Nate, for doing that. Let's go to council report. It's Councilmember Hurst's turn.
I don't have a whole lot. Obviously, the irrigation system is shut down for the year. The sewer board, on Thursday night, they will be discussing in a public session the sale of real property. And so if you do get any calls on that, you can direct them towards me or towards Matt Myers. So I don't know how much I can disclose of that because most of it's been in closed session up to this point, but it is publicly going to be discussed on Thursday night. So I'll make more of a report on that next time and explain it. And then also they are working on, I believe Senator Weiler is helping with a bill. There is not a lot of checks and balances when a sewer district is fined for a violation of like ammonia levels in the effluent of the water. And so they are working on having some kind of process of appeal, which will be going before the legislature, and I think is a really important and critical part of our, I'm hoping the legislature will pass that, but we at some point may need to support them on that, but it's mainly for fines and whatnot that tend to happen, and there's really just no recourse for it. Somebody assigns an amount and there's no ability to appeal it. That's all I have.
That's it? Questions for her?
All I was thinking was, when she said irrigation, was Carl's Jr., which I continue to see, also see besides.
So aggravating.
I
So they're
knew-
using Culinary for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew it would be especially aggravating to Councilmember Hurst, but I thought I'd at least report it.
Is it possibly, obviously Carl's Jr. has shut down?
They're gone.
They're gone.
So is it the property manager that's supposed to be
The owner, it doesn't
the
matter.
owner? And
Their pipes freeze.
And if I could, so just, I think I've shared this with you already, but we don't necessarily have anything on ordinances in place to essentially fine or have a fee associated with the wasting of water. But Mike and I, even after the last one that we heard about, the previous business, we talked about the idea of next year developing a better marketing or outreach program, saying, okay, now's the time to shut off the water, just like Dual Creek does and all of the irrigation companies do. So I believe Lauren's going to is working on something like that, language for next year, but also we'll come to you with potentially some code changes to allow us to do some enforcement. Because ultimately what Mike had shared with me the first time was, I get 2 or 3 of these a year, because most people get it, right? Most people get it. So exerting a lot of effort to create this material and didn't necessarily have a great cost benefit analysis. However, With the second one, it's like, maybe we should just have some better material, so
I
we're
was
working.
gonna say, but to Brian's point, have we actually been able to contact somebody and to say, hey, we're
At
continuing
this
to
current
run this here?
location, I don't know.
I don't think they want to, I don't think they're doing it just to
Right.
stiff us. I think they're doing it because there's been a change in ownership and they have no idea what's going on.
Absolutely, 100%. So Mike is not listening, so I don't know if Mike was able to reach, were you able to reach the current owners or property manager of Carl's Jr.? Dave or?
That's actually what I'm researching right now.
Okay.
In fact, I tried to direct a broker to them who's interested in the property.
So Mike is saying he's trying to reach out to the broker who engaged us before about potential different use for that property, so we'll follow up. I mean, Mike gets pretty frustrated with, and Dave get pretty frustrated with the wasteful water, so they're on it.
Do we have the ability just to turn off the water at a valve in the street for right now, unilaterally?
I don't know if we can necessarily do that since it provides the water to the building. And it's not,
Yeah, which may be a life safety issue. if
yeah,
there's a
we're
fire.
obligated to provide the service to them as long as they're making
And we
payment.
don't have anything in our ordinance that says that they're breaking an ordinance. They're not really doing
I
anything
agree.
right.
Yeah. I thought it was a helpful gesture.
All right, thank you, council member. Mayor report. Attended a very nice Veterans Day program a week ago Monday over at the park in Bountiful, the Veterans Park, which is for our 5 cities. It was very well done, and they were honoring Vietnam veterans. They've kind of had a theme. Korean was in memorial. It's getting to the point that World War I, World War II have all passed away. But it was a very nice program. Had a flyover, and it was very well done. The audit committee I talked to, that was covered tonight. Thank you to staff that did the Centerville Honors Program and for honoring the volunteers. I heard very good comments throughout the community. I thought it was a very nice night as far as being able to associate with people that we always don't get a chance to associate with. Went up last Friday to the Wasatch Integrated Waste Management 40th Anniversary Open House. Nathan Rich told me they had about 150 people come through. I was there right at the end, and so they felt good about it. Education, the chance to go on tours for the public. When I was there, there was a Centerville family with their 3 little children that I went through the tour with, even though I've gone through it numerous times. And it was a great opportunity for their kids to see how the blue can, where it goes and what happens with it. As I mentioned yesterday, I went to the Davis County Tourism Annual Luncheon, and in addition to those 3 places they highlighted, other places in Davis County, obviously, which are tourism driven. There's Hill Air Force Museum, Antelope Island. The Davis County Convention Center is now turning 20 years old. And they're hoping that the Wasatch Sports Park will, or it's not Wasatch, anyway, the sports park that's being built in Farmington, that will be coming online in 2025. So that was a nice day and a nice luncheon. You'll find that outside of Utah, most of our visitors come from Idaho. So that's where our tourism dollars come from, outside of Utah. And then for the future, I just remind you that we'll be having, Bruce and his crew has been working hard putting up Christmas lights the Monday after Thanksgiving, so that's before we meet again. The day before we meet again, we'll be having the annual do the countdown, flip the switch, light the park, which the residents love, and have a special visitor come as well too that night. And so thank you. You got they still are wrapping those trees. They got some left to do.
No, I'm glad you said so, because I had completely forgot about it. Tomorrow, we're gonna start putting up lights.
He's hilarious.
That's pretty awesome.
I've seen the trucks there.
He's lying to you so bad because I called him today and he says, "Are you coming, Mayor?" So, but that was a good one, Bruce.
Junior high madrigals are gonna come and sing at
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
So that's the 29th at what time?
The second.
The second.
Oh, the second.
Yeah, Monday the 2nd.
It's
6 o'clock, right?
6 o'clock is when they turn them
Yeah.
on?
6 o'clock.
When does the actual event start?
Well, that's when we do the countdown, the flip
I
the
know,
switch.
but
Well,
I
people
wanna be there in
show-
advance. I don't
People
wanna-
show up just like at 15, 20 minutes before
Yeah,
that, because nothing
Yeah.
happens until those lights come on.
Yeah. Anything else I'm missing from any other your departments that I should be sending council to? Before our next meeting? Okay, thanks. So that's my report, and unless there's any questions for me. Thank you. City manager report.
All right, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I only have a couple of things. One, just want to let you know, Chief and I have been meeting with the Small Arms, Centerville Small Arms Association, trying to decide how to move forward with that. They've got a change in leadership, so that's causing a little bit of a, halt in our discussions, but we hope to have the extension of an agreement next meeting for six months to allow them to work through some of these changes. I think both Chief and I feel pretty optimistic about what they're wanting to do and how they're going to accomplish it. But of course, it requires a lot of the effort from the members to make it happen, which is really what we need, is to see some more participation from them. So we'll talk about that in 2 weeks, and then
Brent, as part of that discussion, did you talk about, hey, maybe we'll take over management of it and still let them use the facility?
not at this time.
Okay.
No. And then, Councilmember Hayman, I appreciate your comments, and on behalf of the staff, we appreciate the comments you made earlier. We really do have a great staff here at Centerville. They're great to work with. They're constantly trying to be innovative and save money, but we honestly, even though we may live in other communities, this is the community we care about, and we spend a lot of our time here, and we invest a lot of time and energy into making sure Centerville is great. So I know they all feel that, and I know they appreciate what you share, so thank you for that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, appreciate it. I'm not aware of a closed session tonight, is there? Okay.
We can have one. What do you want to talk about?
Is there anything else that I'm missing?
I was gonna say, Lisa.
Lisa wants it to be touched.
We do have buyers coming in town this week to do the study.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
It's not a closed session, it's just FYI, since I keep on smelling cannabis, I thought I'd at least report that the study's yet being happening this week.
I wish you all a great Thanksgiving with family and friends, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. So motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Adjourn.